Okay, what we got here is a lift cylinder. Comes off of 1994 4115 John Deere. It's the left side lift cylinder. I'm going to be replacing the seals on both sides. That's the one that's leaking, but if I'm going to do one, I might as well do them both. Just to catch you up, I pull the cotter, pull the pins, release the pressure in the system. I'm shaking this back and forth all the way stop to stop. I've got this, my lift FEL up on jack stands, not because I'm planning on working underneath, but just so it keeps it uplifted where I've got more room to work. And that's basically it. I cleaned up the screws, released these nuts. Like I said, relieve pressure to begin with. So I dropped these hoses out of the way. That gives me clearance to knock the pin through gently. I just use a scratch awl, gently push it through, so you don't beat it on with hammers. You don't want to mushroom it out. And generally, once you relieve the pressure on it, there's nothing really holding it in there. So just slides right out real easy. And then you're going to have a lot of hydraulic fluid still trapped in the cylinder. If it slides at all, it's going to squirt, as it did. But not that much. Once you take the cylinder out, make sure you put the cylinder down in a bucket before you raise and lower the cylinder. Both shafts, as you push it down, hydraulic fluid is going to squirt out the bottom. You flip it over, put the other side down, shove it the other way, hydraulic fluid is going to squirt out. Now you've got an empty cylinder, so you've got something to work with. And that's what we got here. I'm about to be taking this apart and replacing the seal package. Now you got a double seal package. These are your seals, your outer seals, your inner seals, and vice versa. I've done this, the lift cylinders, the tilt cylinders a couple weeks ago. Sorry, a couple months ago. And they're working fine. And I knew these were leaking at the time, a slow leak, but I figured, well, I'll let it go for now, fix it when I need to, and now it gave up the ghost today, so time to do the job. Current costs, $88 a package, $17 a package, times 2, one for each cylinder. Now I've rebuilt these tilt cylinders twice. First time it was $85 for that one package plus the 16. The second time it was $95 for that one package plus the 16, times 2, of course. Now I've removed the grease zerks. Reason being, that's one. This one goes on the very end right here. This one right here is a 3/8. This one here is a 5/16. Reason I've taken this one, the 5/16. Reason I've taken the grease zerks out is I've got a tendency to break them off when I'm trying to rebuild these things. Best thing to do is go ahead and take them off. You know, clean the fittings out while I'm at it, and then I can put them back on later without having to end up drilling these out to put in new sides because I broke the damn thing off. Now the first thing I'm going to do, take my snap ring pliers. They've got a locking ring right there. I'll take my snap ring pliers, leave the pressure on here, pull it out and take that locking ring off. Can't do it one-handed, so I'll be right back. Now to be honest with you, when you're doing the tilt cylinders, it's easier to go ahead and take this pin off the bucket part, leave this pin attached. You tilt that up, tilt the cylinder up, we knock that piece in, which I'm about to show you, and then you can slide the rod and the puck out. using this to anchor it. Now, I don't have enough room to work with on the lift cylinder as I did with the tilt cylinder, leaving it attached or reattaching it to the job. So I got to come to the vise. Now, I've seen other guys clamp the cylinder in the vise, and that's fine, but I really don't want to scar up my base. I would not clamp the cylinder walls, because by the time you put a crimp on that vise and you end up warping that out around, you've ruined your cylinder. And like I said, John Deere, $88 for 50 cents worth of plastic and rubber. Another $88. $17 for 2 pieces of rubber. $900 for a new cylinder. So you don't want to mess it up. So what I'm doing is I've got another rod, clamp that in the vise, slide that over the shaft, and now I can work with pulling this part out. But first, I've got to knock this piece in. Notice I just left the lock ring on the shaft here. I want to inspect your shaft, make sure there's no scratches or gouges or rust on it too. This shaft looks really nice, so that's not the problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a punch. We're going to lay the punch on that ring. We're going to push that ring in past the little slot that you'll see up in there. And then I'll show you what the next stage is. Now when you take your flat punch and knock that collar in, move your snap ring out of the way, knock the collar in, and you might be able to see that little groove right up in here. A little groove right there, and that's what you're looking for. And you gotta be very, very careful using your punch. They do not scratch your rod shaft. Do not. It takes a good lick with a punch and a hammer, a couple good, reasonable licks, knock her in there, but do not accidentally bump your shaft, because you scratch that shaft and you might as well just bought yourself a new cylinder. Now, I'm going to try to reuse that slanted ring from the last time when I did the lift cylinder, the tilt cylinders. If not, I have another one in each package. That split ring right there with a slant. And you're going to push that in there. I'll show you how to put it in there in a second. Because I live in South Louisiana, and it's 98, 99 degrees in this shop right now. And that's with an AC blowing up in here. So, woo! Now, I've got the ring in place. Now you're going to put that ring in with the tapered side facing into the cylinder, because there's an O-ring, a steel O-ring around that little green puck that catches in that groove to keep that puck from coming out. And what that little plastic ring does is it fills that groove so that that O-ring can slide over it. Now normally they're one-time use only, because it pretty well tears it up when it comes out, but I've managed to not tear that one up the last time, so I might be able to reuse it. If not, then I'll get the other one out of the package. Now, this parts number, this is for a 410 loader, by the way, which goes on various John Deeres. It happens to be on a 4115 right now, but that's a 410 loader. And it is AHC 17687 and AHC 16980. And I think it's time for a refresher. It is a bit of a delicate matter to get that little ring to sit in that groove. Now when it comes from the factory, it's sometimes a little bit too big, because they make it for different size cylinders. So I had to trim off like maybe 1/8 of an inch, 3/16. off the little split end for it to sit in that groove. And trying to get the seat down in there, it's a little bit of a delicate matter. It takes 2 hands, but once you got it, you're just going to give this a pull, push it in, and pull it out, and slam it to slide that metal ring over that plastic little thingamabob. And that worked. Although that little ring, I think, is beyond any use. And again, I got 2 uses out of it, which I think is pretty good, but it's pretty well shaved down. And this is what the shaft looked like. You got what I call the hockey puck, and this is the main, I don't know what you call it, part that slides up and down. And you got seals on the outside. That's that metal ring that locks into place in that little groove right here. And you got seals on the inside of this. And the worst seal, I think, is this one right here, is when you're putting it back together. Although the internal seals on this one can be a bit of a pain. Now, time to take that nut off there. Now, that can be a fight. Get right back at you. You're also going to want to take a flashlight, look down into the center bore of your cylinder, and look for any rust spots or scratches that might have been responsible for the deterioration of your seal. Now, right around this end, there's a little bit of a rust ring. See, there's the groove. There you got the edge, then you got the groove, a little bit of a rust ring, and I'll take a very fine emery cloth and smooth that out. So that might be what's been eating up my seals. Now you may find this end nut takes some force to remove because they use Loctite on it, and I will be putting Loctite back on it when I reinstall it, but it takes some force to break through there. But you still got to be forceful but gentle. Remember, you don't want to mess up these shafts, especially this one right here. You don't want any scratches on there. That one right there is not so particular, but you want it relatively smooth. You don't want to gouge that up. That's why it's easier to leave the main pin in it and work while it's still attached to your tractor, like when you're doing your lift cylinders, your tilt cylinders. But I really don't have enough room. There's no way that shaft's going to fit in here, so we're stuck with the vise. Just got to be gentle and forceful. Broke loose and she's coming along. That's a 15/16 nut, by the way. So, yeah. Back to it. Well, now that the bolt's removed, it's a little warm. See where the Loctite is on the threads. We'll be cleaning that off of there. Put some fresh Loctite. You can slide your hockey putt right off. There's the one. Now, you got your, I forget what they call this. Now you're going to have a couple seals on the inside and seals on the outside. They have a lot of seals in this bag, and not all these seals you're going to be using. It's pretty much a generic bag, one for all. So this is for the 410 loader, but you're also going to find it fits a lot of different type of loaders, which you're not going to be using all the seals. So the idea is to pick through there and find out which seals you need for your application. In which case I'm going to need that fat yellow ring, which is right there. Your inner seal, that's the one that tore up really bad. You can see that one right there. That's going to be in this bag over here. 16980 bag. Where you can find those seals. That should be that seal right there. That can be an internal seal right there. And that can be fun to put in. We'll be getting to that in a second. I'll double check, make sure our rod's smooth, no scratches, no rust areas, everything looks good. I'll clean out these threads. Get ready for a fresh application of Loctite for after I replace these. I don't know what I call that a hockey putt. Slides right on the end there. But this is the one, then you put the new seal on. Notice how this seal is flush with the edge. When I put this seal on there, it's going to be sticking out quite a bit. And if I try to put this back on here and shove it back into the cylinder, it's going to cut that off, and then you're going to have a cylinder that's going to leak down quickly, because this is what holds the fluid. This puck here is what drives that, holds the pressure in here. But this part right here, when the pressure comes in this top valve right here, it comes in behind this puck and pushes it out. Now, if this is scoured at all, it's going to allow the fluid to leak around this puck, in which case it's going to just slowly just come right back in, or sometimes very quickly just right back in, because the fluid's not being able to be contained behind this hockey puck. And this one right here holds the pressure from coming out, inside and outside. So it works like this. You get pressure on this side of your hockey puck, and you get pressure on this side of your hockey puck. Comes up, closes. Okay, that extends the boom out. That retracts the boom. So you gotta be very careful about this seal right here. Most people use a ring compressor to compress this and hold it down for about 30 minutes before they shove it back into the cylinder. I use a hose clamp, but it works the same. The idea is to hold it, press it down into there and hold it till it fits into the groove flush before you try to push it back into that cylinder. Okay, now we'll go. This is what we're looking at. You got your hockey puck here. It's got one seal. Now you got your locking device, whatever that is. You got one O-ring here, one O-ring here. You got two seals. You got the outer seal. You got inner seal on the inside. Now that seal gives people the most problems to get in and out of there. So that's 1, 2 O-rings, 3, 4, 5. This is what comes in the kit. 1, 2. And this one, and this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So, needless to say, you're not going to be using all these. This is the part that goes with that O-ring. That's that one. These two, one's your inner, one's your outer. For here. Both of them on the inside. So now you just need a couple O-rings. The rest of these, well, this is a piece that was used, basically this piece here. This is, after it's been destroyed, this is what it looks like brand new. I'll be using this to take that other cylinder apart. Hopefully I don't destroy it, then I can reuse it. But most of the time it's one-time use only, because it pretty well tears them up when it comes out. That one's not going to be able to be used again. When you're pulling these center seals out, this is called the rod guide, by the way. I do have a schematic here. I forget what they called them again. You got the rod guide, hydraulic cylinder rod guide, that's that. And one, the hockey puck 14, that's the piston. I call it the hockey puck. Now, when you got two seals on the inside. This is the reason my piston's leaking. That's one seal. That is this seal right here. And you got this seal here, which is also tore up. And that's this seal right here. Now remember, you got the groove and the solid back. The groove faces the back of the piston guide. The solid face faces the top of the piston guide when you put it back in there. It sits in there just like this. This one sits in there. You got that little ridge right there. You got the U part, the groove. It faces the back, and the little ridge faces the outside. So that slides up against your cylinder like such, sealing your hydraulic fluid into the assembly. It's also a good idea to have a nice set of picks for helping you remove these, and a screwdriver helps you put it back in, but it's still a kind of bit of a pain. We'll get to that in a second. Cross that bridge when we come to it. Basically, when you pull the ring off, you're going to find the closest ring to replace it. Now I just pulled the ring out of this groove right where my thumbnail is. Not the top groove, that's where the snap ring holds. The second groove above this steel ring, which is the one that locks into that groove in your cylinder wall. You see that groove right there where my thumbnail is. That's why I took the skinny O-ring off, and I'm going to replace that with that skinny O-ring, which is the closest size O-ring I can find in this kit. As far as putting it on there, I don't think I can do it one-handed, but we'll give it a shot. Slide it on there, line it up into the groove. Okay, if I hadn't had a couple beers, I wouldn't even be trying this. Pull it out. Okay, it's going to take 2 hands. Be right back. Now I just took out the fat O-ring on the bottom one, and I've got the skinny one in. I'm about to replace that, but first off, I'm going to take this flat ring off too and find the closest replacement for that, which is this right here. And the fat one, the closest replacement would be that one right there. That's basically how you do it. That one's too fat. That one's just right. Now I was correct about the O-ring. This size, that size. I was incorrect about the flat ring. We're going to go with this orange one here. Now where did I put the damn thing? Yeah, there it is. This is the one I took off, and this is the one that's going to replace it. If you look, same diameter, same thickness. We get to zoom in on that. There we go. And there's nothing else even close, so this is what we're working with. Now the outer seals are on. I still got to do the inner seals, but it's O-ring, flat ring. Then you got your snap ring, which never came off. Then you got your other O-ring. Now it's time to work on the inside. Fun, fun. We're going to work on the inner ring, bottom inner ring. This can be a pain. I've had people say soak it in water, soften it up, but basically you're trying to get something that's bigger than the diameter of a circle into a smaller circle to slip into that groove, which is a fight. Trust me. All right, we got that first inner seal in. That's that blue ring down there in the inside there. Remember, the cut part goes toward the bottom, not toward the painted end. Same with this one. Personally, I think that one seal is the reason why mechanics charge $200 plus a pop for putting these cylinders together. Right there. You soften it up by boiling it, but it's still going to be a fight. And do yourself a favor, do not use a pointed object to try to shove that in there, because you do not want to be poking any holes in that particular seal. I particularly use the blunt end of this punch to work it in. Push it up in there, and I push it up a little bit, and take the pointed end, kind of work it into the groove gently, then push a little more, then pointed. Either way, it's a bit of a pain. This other one can be not near so bad. It's a little rough. Now, I also make sure to clean the groove before I put it in. So I'm going to clean this groove and then put this seal here into that slot. I wish I could show y'all putting these seals in, but working one-handed, it's impossible. But that went in a lot easier. Since it's so close to the edge, I just work it in. Make sure they're seated down smooth. Make sure they're not folded. They don't have any bumps in there. Nice and smooth. The cup's facing the right direction. And your piston guide is complete. One O-ring, one seal, another O-ring, and 2 inner seals. Now, time to work on the hockey puck, or the piston. In which case I'm going to take my pick, gently remove this. There should be an O-ring underneath. And I'll replace the O-ring. And I'll replace that seal with this seal. And then I'm going to take a hose clamp and wrap it around there and tighten it up to compress it into the groove. Once I've made sure it's smooth and everything. Just so that I can get this O-ring back into that cylinder without shearing off the edges or scratching them or gouging them. Now, I've gotten this O-ring off. Yes, it broke in the process. That happens. It's very dry and brittle at this stage, which means it's well past time for it to be replaced. Which is why I'm doing the other one, even though it's not leaking, because I'm sure it's not any better condition than this. If you look at this one, flexible, not brittle. If you look at your piston, hockey puck, I've got to get the O-ring out of there. I'll place the O-ring with this O-ring right here. So you've got the O-ring on the inside and the yellow ring on the outside, and it will stick out proud. And that's why you've got to compress it where it's sitting flush. There we go. Get the focus right. See you when I'm done. Okay, the O-ring's in place. Now the yellow washer's in place. Now notice it's had to be stretched out a little bit to get on there. So it's sticking out very proud. There's no way that's going to go back into this cylinder without shearing it off. So what we're going to do is compress it into the groove. Now, like I said, some people use those engine ring, cylinder ring clamps. I find this to be just as effective and a lot less of a fight. Slip that on over it gently, tighten her down, and let her sit for like 30 minutes. And she'll sit right in that groove. Okay, plumber strap, whatever you want to call that, that's in place. Make very sure you do not accidentally gouge that yellow washer when you're putting that on there. Watch that tag in, that it don't dig in at all. Don't push it in there smooth. Now we're going to let that sit for a while. And now we're ready to start putting her back together. Well, it's been about 30 minutes. I'm ready to start putting this back together. I've got all the old Loctite cleaned out of these threads. Ran the nut on there just fine. Nice and once I get it started, there we go. Nice and easy. So no more Loctite bind. Now, I'm going to be putting fresh Loctite on here. Don't get me wrong. You do not want that nut backing out. But you don't want to be messing around with the old Loctite. Get some fresh stuff. Clean them out. Get some fresh stuff. Make sure your threads are all good. Nothing's buggered up. That's fine. There's no buggery there. Everything looks good. Ready to start putting the thing back together. Now, first things first, what I'm going to do is coat that shaft with some fresh hydraulic oil, and also run some fresh hydraulic oil on the inside of that. Now, some people suggested using grease or regular oil, but hydraulic oil is what goes there. Hydraulic oil is what I'm putting back there. Now, if I had a cup, I'd just fill a little cup with hydraulic oil. Instead, I just put some hydraulic oil on a rag and gently just wiped it on there and wiped down that little piston guide. Now, make sure when you put the piston guide on, you're putting green to green. Slide it on here. Make sure your seal ain't folded up. Make sure it's nice and smooth, and then you're just going to work it down on there. Simple as that. And then push her down. You're going to take 2 hands, so I got to put the phone down. No, I'm not a professional YouTuber, that's why I'm using my phone. Got it on there. Now we're going to shove her down on there. It's going to take some force. Ouch. Watch that end don't gouge you in the neck like it just did me. That's fine. We're down on there. Good. Now, hockey puck goes on. I'm going to try to put it on the way it was to begin with. There's your, that right there, the side that was on the shaft. That right there, the side that was against the nut. So I'd like to put it on there the same way it came off. And it just slips right on there like that. Now we're going to put some Loctite and put the nut on. That easy. Go together part goes pretty smooth. As long as you make sure you don't gouge any of those seals. Now, just drop a red Loctite on there. Okay, so it's smeared a little bit. Your hockey puck's loose in there. Like I said, we're going to lock this down against that hockey piston. Still call it a hockey puck. Let me tighten that down 15/16. I'm ready to move on to putting it back together. Now, as you can see, it's been compressed pretty much flush with the hockey puck, the piston, however you want to call it. I'm still going to call it a hockey puck. Now, I'm going to take the O-ring. You see this ring right here, that split ring? I need to compress this till I get the mouth of that cylinder past it. I'm going to feed the cylinder over this end, work it down, and when it gets here, I'm going to try to put that O-ring right on the edge to where once I release the O-ring, the piston will just slide right into it without this popping open, because that is too wide for the piston to slip over. And it's kind of a pain in the ass trying to compress it. That's what the O-ring's for. Alright, next shot. Okay. As far as grease go, like I said, I don't normally grease that part or the shaft, but I will put a little grease around here to help it go into there, because you do not want this shearing off any of this yellow washer here, this yellow seal. You know, like I said, I got this plumber strap wrapped around that split ring, pushing down in the groove so that I can slide the, once it's the end, that cylinder slides down to this part, I'll push it right up to that plumber strap, then loosen it and shove it at the same time to where it slips right in there. Now, it doesn't take a lot of grease. You just put a little bit of grease on here. Just make sure it's clean grease. I put the grease on the first time. I found a few metal shavings in there that apparently somebody been in my grease, so I had to open up a new batch. Make sure she's clean. I had to clean off all the grease, make sure I got all the metal shavings off there. You damn sure don't want metal shavings in there scouring up the inside of your cylinder. You want clean grease. So that's going to make that cylinder slide over there a little bit easier. Okay, next stage. I wish I could show you. I got to do it piece by piece. Oops, spun around. That's why that plastic's there. Beats on the plastic, don't beat on steel. Make sure that's clean. Yes. Okay, ready for the next stage. Wish I could show y'all me doing it, but I've only got 2 hands and 1 eye. Thank you. Point in time, I flip the cylinder around, put that in back on my steel, and now I'm going to use a punch and shove this into the cylinder, because you shove this all day long. This is going to go into here. This is going to come up, and it's not going to seat. And you want this to seat. So, flip it around, and now I'm going to be using the same punch to drive this back in, working backwards. So what did I do with my punch? There it is. I'm going to take the punch, carefully hold it right here, tap it with a hammer to shove it in there till that ring and that plumber strap come in contact. And it's going to shove the plumber strap off, and the ring's going to expand in the cylinder rather than outside the cylinder and stopping me. That's the game plan anyway. This is not the best contraption in the world, but it works. Just gotta be careful. I've had some issues with that snap ring trying to slip out of the O-ring before it gets into the groove. It's right there. But I've had these issues before. It's just patience. Getting her tightened down just right at the edge and not slide off the snap ring until the snap ring is inside the cylinder shaft. That's your goal. And sometimes it can be a little frustrating. All right. Now finally got it in there. I was just having trouble because that round split ring kept trying to roll out of that plumber's strap. About to unscrew this, take this off. Now, you got to punch this in till it's past the groove. And then you can pull the rod, pull the cylinder, pull it back out to lock it in place. So punch that in till it's past, then pull this part out. The piston's going to hit against this and knock it forward to lock that split ring back into that groove. Otherwise, as soon as you pressurize it, you're going to shove this right out of there. Also, FYI, be careful. There's an O-ring on each of these. There's one. There's two. There's fine. Don't need to be replaced, and that's a good thing because they do not come with the kit. They're separate. And since it's $85 for that little kit, $17 for those two rings, I don't want to ask John Deere for another couple of O-rings. Okay, now that I've shoved that rod guide past the groove, now I'm going to start pulling this out. It's going to take two hands. I'm going to pull this out and knock the piston against that. It's going to shove that back out till that O-ring locks in place. Make sure you don't skip this step. Like I said, if that split O-ring isn't locked in that groove, so you pressurize that system, this is going to come blasting out of there, and you have hydraulic fluid all over the place. Not to mention you got to start all over. All right, now that that's done, all that's left is to take my snap ring pliers, open this up and lock it into this groove here. Like I said, this right here, at this point in time, shove it in, shove it out. It's not going anywhere. It's locked in place. So we're in good shape. So just got to put the snap ring plier, and we're basically done with that piston other than the install back on the tractor. Of course, I got to put my grease nipples back in, grease zerks. But other than that, it's ready to go back on the tractor. Now, as far as the reinstall, I'm a little messing some. I mean, they got zert fittings for a reason, to grease it up afterwards. But I prefer to go ahead and make sure it's got a good coating of grease inside the shaft, and on the pin. Same here. We're just going to take this piece right here. I'm going to start with the head side. Drop the head in there. Put the pin in. That pin. Lock that pin in. Put the cotter pin in. We're done with that side. Now lift this side up. Pull it out to lines up with the hole. Pin, pin, pin. Lock in place. Then reinstall these hoses. Back in a bit. One more thing I almost forgot. Your hose fittings are going to be facing on the, if your head's on the bucket side of the FEL, front end loader, your hose fittings will be facing the inside. That's where your hoses are, of course. Make sure your zert fittings about 90 degrees facing down from your hose fittings. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get in here and grease it. So if you're 90 degrees down, when this is in place here, you better reach right up in there, reach that zert fitting, and be able to grease that. This zert fitting, you grease through right there. how you reach that. Actually, right there. Excuse me. Wrong one. There's another hole there. Never mind. Go talk to somebody who actually knows what the hell they're talking about. Now remember, this pin can go in and out, can turn, and you got one little hole to find. So it's kind of a bit of pain in the butt trying to find the hole. So the best thing I recommend, take a scratch awl as you're pushing it in, feel for the hole with the scratch awl. Once you got the hole lined up, take the scratch awl, kind of wiggle it around to make sure the hole's lined up completely. That'll give you the ability to take your pin here and drop it right through there. And you take your cotter pin, lock it in place, and that side's done. And then it's time to play on this side. Okay, we're going to see if we can do this in one-handed, more or less. Basically, you want to pull that out that lines up with the hole. There's going to be some wiggling. Then you're going to line it up, try to wiggle this in. See if we can get it in there. Yeah. Now I got my thumb over the hole, so I'm trying to line it up. Tap it in. Okay. Get my scratch awl right here. Shove it down in this hole. Find the hole, give it a little wiggle, make sure it's lined up good. That's good. Take my lock pin. See if my lock pin will drop down in that hole like it's supposed to. There we go. Now, I ain't gonna be able to put the cotter pin in with one hand, but that's all there is to it. Put the hoses back up, and then we'll start working on the other side. Well, I'm going to do the other side off camera, and then I'll show you how to make sure the system's bled out. Refill the system back up with hydraulic fluid and make sure I got all the air bled out of the lines. The self-bleeding system, more or less, but still there's a method to working it out. Now, I don't think I mentioned how to get the part number for this cylinder. You look on the inside of the cylinder, right there. That's that cylinder right there. The first one that I repaired. See where all the fluids leaked out. Look on the inside of that cylinder, just past where that top tit comes in. The numbers are engraved and then painted over, and very, very hard to see. So generally what I do, I take a magic marker, run a magic marker over the area. I quickly rub as much of that off as I can. What it's going to leave is a magic marker down in the grooves. The camera ain't picking it up very well, but now you can see the numbers a lot better. So that's how you know your part number for your cylinder. Now, as far as bleeding these cylinders is concerned, I've got the other one on now. What we're going to do, I haven't topped off my hydraulic fluid yet, and I am low, but that's fine, because I'm going to be pumping hydraulic fluid in these cylinders anyway, so we need to top it off again afterwards. What you do is you're going to fire up your tractor, and first thing I'm going to do is it's going to take a little while because the cylinders are empty of fluid right now, so I've got to kind of work the lever up and down. You go little strokes, up and down, little strokes, a little bigger, and finally do the full range, and that pumps all the air out of the system. Bucket still works? All right. We're up right now. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull those jack stands out from under there. Well, I've got the full range on the bucket. down. Good. Up, down, up, down, up, down. We'll work the bucket in and out too while I'm at it. Up, down a little bit of time, a little bit more. Now, like I said, I'm lowering hydraulic fluid. I know. I just dropped my trash box. And once I topped off my hydraulic fluid first, be filling back up again after I'm done with this. So I'm doing this first, then I'll top up my hydraulic fluid and then go back to it. I done did the bucket, all the way down, all the way up. Not yet all the way up. Just another time. All the way up. Like I said, it's more or less a self-bleeding system, but eliminate any air pocket or cavitation in the system. Start small, up, down, bigger and bigger until you got the full range. And we are done. All right. Both cylinders have been repaired. All seals have been replaced. No fresh leaks. That's all the old oil. Everything looks good there. Freshly greased pin. Freshly greased pins. Put my trash box back in the bucket. Freshly greased pin. That's all the old stuff. No fresh leaks. Freshly greased pin. We're good. There's no fresh leaks on here. Nothing. Fingers are dry. I know the tire looks suspicious, but oh yeah, I've got to reclamp my hoses back on. Once I'm done with that, I'm done for the night. We're done. Till next time. Top off the oil, top off the antifreeze. I'm ready to go back to work tomorrow. Good night, y'all.